Hello everyone. This is Six Path Weeb. Today, we're diving into a thought-provoking what-if scenario that challenges the very balance of the Naruto universe. What if Naruko possessed Isshiki Otsutsuki's eye? Isshiki's dojutsu is not just a visual power, it's a reality-warping ability that bends space, scale, and strategy itself. Now imagine that level of precision and dominance combined with Naruko's raw chakra, battle instincts, and unbreakable will. How would it reshape her journey? Would the shinobi world still survive as we know it, or would destiny take a completely different path? Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The content on this channel is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, let's begin. Iruka rested his elbows on his desk and let out a quiet breath as he set his grading pen aside. The classroom was peaceful during lunch recess, sunlight stretching across the empty rows of desks. While other instructors preferred chatting in the teacher's lounge, Iruka enjoyed these calm moments alone. They gave him time to think, and today, his thoughts drifted toward one student in particular. Naruko Uzumaki. Out of all the students in his class, Naruko stood out the most. She was bright in spirit, endlessly energetic, and always finding unusual ways to make people notice her. Iruka understood her better than most. Like him, she had grown up without parents, and like him, she knew what it felt like to be on the outside of a crowd looking in. Naruko's life, however, had come with its own quiet challenges. Long ago, something mysterious and powerful had been sealed inside her to protect the village, and although it was never meant to define her, rumors had lingered. The grown-ups no longer treated her unkindly, but many still kept their distance. Iruka knew how lonely that kind of silence could feel, especially for a child who only wanted to belong. He tapped the edge of his desk thoughtfully and shifted his focus to her schoolwork. Naruko struggled with written lessons and long lectures. Sitting still was clearly not her strength. Her practical skills were uneven too. She showed promise in hands-on training but often lost focus when lessons became repetitive. On top of that, her playful pranks, while harmless and sometimes clever, frequently distracted her from learning what she truly needed. Still, Iruka didn't see a problem child. He saw potential. Leaning back in his chair, he considered how different Naruko's situation was from many of her classmates. She didn't have family members guiding her practice at home, and traditional studying methods simply didn't suit her learning style. Then, suddenly, an idea clicked into place. Iruka's eyes widened slightly, and a warm smile spread across his face. What if, he murmured to himself, she learns by moving instead of memorizing? The plan felt so obvious that he wondered why no one had tried it before. Then he remembered, helping a child like Naruko required patience, creativity, and care, and not everyone was willing to offer that. Iruka was. The final bell rang, and the students gathered their things, chatting happily as they headed for the door. Naruko bounced along with the group, her bag slung over one shoulder. As she passed his desk, Iruka spoke gently. Naruko. She paused and turned, blue eyes curious rather than worried. You're not in trouble, Iruka said quickly, smiling to reassure her. I'd just like to talk with you for a moment. Could you sit in the front row until the others head out? Naruko blinked, then nodded. Okay, sensei. As she took a seat, Iruka felt confident. This wasn't about scolding or rules. It was about helping a bright, determined girl discover her strengths, and reminding her that she was never alone. A few quiet giggles drifted through the classroom, and Naruko felt her cheeks warm like sunset clouds. She didn't argue or complain. She respected her teacher too much for that. With a small nod, she stepped out of the line of academy students and followed Iruka's instructions to wait inside. As she sat at the desk he pointed out, Naruko tapped her fingers, trying to be patient. A hopeful thought popped into her mind, maybe this is a surprise ramen trip. That idea alone made her grin. One by one, her classmates filed out until the room was empty. Iruka gently closed the door behind the last student and turned back toward her. Naruko looked up, her bright eyes shining. Sensei, she said cheerfully, did I stay behind because you finally noticed how amazing I am? Are you going to move me up already? Iruka smiled, amused but calm, and shook his head. Not quite, Naruko. You're not moving up today. But I truly believe that if you keep working hard, you'll be ready when your class graduates. Naruko puffed her cheeks for just a moment, then laughed and straightened in her chair. Iruka stepped closer and rested his hands on the desk, meeting her gaze kindly. I've been reviewing your schoolwork, he continued, and I have a few mixed thoughts. You have a big heart, and you never give up. That's wonderful. But learning also means slowing down, listening, and practicing carefully. Naruko nodded. She didn't interrupt. She wanted to understand. Iruka softened his voice. This academy is a safe place for everyone. We treat each other with respect, we use kind words, and there is a strict rule that there is no nudity anywhere, ever. We focus on learning, growing, and becoming our best selves. Naruko smiled proudly. I can do that, she said. I'll try harder. I promise. Iruka chuckled warmly. I know you will. And as Naruko sat a little taller at her desk, she felt something even better than a promotion. She felt believed in. Naruko's focus sharpened as she looked at Iruka, her shoulders stiff with a mix of curiosity and nerves. She waited quietly, giving him her full attention. Iruka met her gaze with a calm, encouraging smile, one that felt warm and steady, like a big brother's reassurance. Naruko, he said gently, you have the potential to become an excellent ninja. But right now, you're not quite reaching that potential. Before she could speak up, Iruka raised a hand with a soft laugh, continuing before she could object. Please hear me out. I wouldn't say this if I didn't care. I've been thinking carefully about how to help you grow, and I believe I've found a good path forward. Naruko crossed her arms, clearly not thrilled about hearing she had weaknesses, but she stayed quiet. She wanted to improve, she really did. Stepping away from his desk, Iruka spoke in an easy, friendly tone. Your first challenge is learning to guide your enthusiasm and emotions. Those traits are wonderful, and they're part of what makes you special. But as a ninja, you'll need to keep them balanced so they don't take over at the wrong time. You don't need to change who you are, just learn when to pause and breathe. Naruko nodded slightly. The second challenge, Iruka continued, is focus. I know lessons can feel dull sometimes, but attention is a skill. If you practice it here, you'll be better prepared for anything that comes later. Listening carefully can make all the difference. He paused for a moment, making sure she was still listening. She was, her expression serious now. And lastly, he said kindly, your chakra control needs practice. You have plenty of energy, but learning how to guide it smoothly will help you grow stronger and more confident. Iruka smiled again, hopeful and sincere. I wouldn't point these things out without offering help. For focus and emotional balance, I'd like you to try meditation. It may feel slow at first, but it teaches patience and awareness. For chakra control, I'll show you some simple exercises designed just for you. He looked at her expectantly. Naruko, would you like to work together and take these steps forward? Naruko lifted her head, determination shining in her eyes. She wasn't perfect, but she was ready to learn. Naruko listened carefully as Iruka spoke, her thoughts racing like leaves in the wind. Part of her felt discouraged when she heard how many challenges stood between her and her dream of becoming Hokage. Still, a warmer feeling rose above the worry. Iruka cared enough to be honest with her, and even more, he believed she could grow past those obstacles. That meant everything to her. With a bright smile and steady eyes, Naruko answered, I trust you, Iruka. I'll work hard and follow your advice. One day, I'll be a wonderful ninja. 8 months later, the two could be found at Iruka's home during a quiet afternoon. They sat on the living room floor, backs gently touching, legs folded in a calm meditative pose. Teaching Naruko to meditate had taken patience. In the beginning, Iruka had made it more appealing by pairing the practice with simple techniques she enjoyed learning. Over time, Naruko discovered the peace and focus meditation gave her, and she began asking for it herself. She was still cheerful and energetic, but something had changed. Naruko now carried herself with calm confidence. She no longer felt the need to impress everyone. Instead, she cared most about doing her best and earning the respect of people she truly admired. Iruka couldn't help but feel proud. Through dedication and steady effort, Naruko had risen from the bottom of her class to a comfortable middle ground. She learned that being a strong ninja was not about flashy tricks, but about understanding the basics deeply. During friendly classroom practice sessions, she often placed among the top students by using smart thinking and simple techniques in clever ways. Even classmates from famous families were surprised by how effective she had become. One especially memorable day involved a practice match that ended in laughter when a quick substitution caused unexpected confusion among classmates. The moment reminded Iruka that learning could be fun as well as meaningful. One puzzle still remained, though. Naruko had a very large amount of chakra, and managing it was tricky. Even after long practice sessions, creating more than one clone at a time was difficult for her. Since producing 2 clones was part of the graduation requirement, Iruka worried. Wanting to help, he spoke privately with the Hokage, carefully explaining Naruko's situation and the effort she had put in. The Hokage listened kindly and assured Iruka that Naruko's future would not be limited by something she could not control. As the months passed, Naruko and Iruka grew close in a way that felt like family. Outside the classroom, they shared quiet talks, peaceful meditation, and simple moments of trust. These times became something both of them treasured. While meditating together, Iruka sensed the chakra in the room. His own felt smooth and steady. Naruko's, by contrast, was lively and bright, like rippling water full of energy. Compared to when they first began, her progress was remarkable. What had once felt chaotic now showed balance and promise. Iruka smiled to himself. Naruko's strength was not something to fear. It was something to guide. Slowly, and much to Iruka's quiet delight, Naruko's chakra began to settle. What had once felt like rushing water gradually smoothed into something calm and steady, like a clear pond on a peaceful morning. If she could maintain this gentle balance, Iruka believed she might finally gain the control she needed to pass the Jinan exam. Even if Naruko's control ended up being merely average compared to her classmates, that alone would be remarkable. Her natural reserves were so deep that steady control would allow her to perform far beyond expectations. While keeping his own breathing slow and even, Iruka carefully counted how long she maintained the calm state. Just as he was preparing to end the session and suggest they go enjoy a warm meal together, something unexpected happened. Naruko's chakra shimmered. The familiar deep blue light softened, shifting into a pale blue-white glow. The change was sudden but not frightening. Still, it startled Iruka enough to break his focus. He opened his eyes, stood, and stepped closer, studying her with concern and curiosity. Gently, he placed a hand on her shoulder. Naruko stirred and slowly opened her eyes. Iruka gasped. Her eyes, usually a clear sky blue, now glowed with a warm orange hue. Within that color rested a delicate star-like pattern, evenly balanced, its shape calm and symmetrical. The design shimmered softly in a gentle purple tone. There was nothing threatening about it, only something ancient and meaningful. Iruka felt his surprise turn into careful awe. Whatever this was, Naruko deserved answers. And there was only one person who could help. The third Hokage sat peacefully behind his desk, hands folded, his expression kind and thoughtful as Naruko and Iruka sat across from him. After a long, steady breath, he looked directly at Naruko and smiled. Naruko, he said warmly, I knew this day would come. I only wished it had waited a little longer. He explained that the Uzumaki family carried a rare inherited gift, one that awakened only when the heart and chakra were in harmony. Naruko's eyes, he said, were called the Ransigan, or Star of Balance. It was not a symbol of power alone, but of understanding. Naruko listened closely, her hands folded in her lap. The Hokage's voice softened as he continued. You have often asked about your family, and I owe you honesty. Your parents cared deeply for you and for this village. Some parts of their story must remain private for now, but I can tell you about your mother. Her mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. Kushina came from a distant land known for its strong traditions and warm hearts. She arrived in the village as a teenager and quickly became known for her bright spirit and determination. She believed that gifts like special eyes or strong chakra were tools meant to help others, not to set people apart. Naruko felt her chest warm as the Hokage spoke. Kushina faced many hardships, he said gently, but when you were born, she was full of joy. Those who were with her said she smiled proudly, knowing you would grow into someone kind and strong. The Hokage reached into his desk and placed a thick, carefully wrapped book in front of Naruko. This belonged to your mother, he said. She asked me to give it to you when the time was right. Inside, you'll find her notes, not instructions, but encouragement. She believed that the best way to grow was to learn at your own pace. Naruko placed her hands on the book, feeling its weight and meaning. She didn't feel afraid or overwhelmed. She felt supported. Iruka smiled softly beside her, and the Hokage nodded with quiet confidence. This was not the start of power. It was the start of understanding, and Naruko was ready to grow. Naruko looked down at the table, her bright eyes settling on the book resting before her. The cover was simple but beautiful. 3 words were written in soft purple letters, arranged from top to bottom: Uzumaki, Clan, Codex. Between the first 2 words was a gentle spiral symbol, which Naruko had been told represented her family's emblem. Below that, between Clan and Codex, was a carefully drawn illustration of the Ransigan, and I said to carry deep wisdom. For a girl who had grown up without knowing her parents, the book felt more precious than any treasure. It was more than paper and ink. It was a connection. A reminder that she came from somewhere, that she belonged to a family with a story. Naruko carefully lifted the codex and hugged it to her chest, smiling softly. Across the room, the village leader watched her with a warm, grandfatherly smile. He cared for Naruko deeply and had always wanted to give her something meaningful, something that would help her understand herself. Wanting her to enjoy the gift right away, he spoke kindly. "After you've had time to read your clan's book," he said, "I'd like you to tell me what you learn about your natural talents. It will help me guide you as you continue your studies." He paused, then handed her a small scroll. "I also found a technique that may suit you better. Your teacher mentioned that you have a lot of energy, and sometimes that just means you need a different approach." Curious, Naruko carefully unrolled the scroll. Written neatly at the top were the words Shadow Clone Technique. She looked up with wide eyes, silently asking a question. "This technique uses more focus and energy," the leader explained gently. "It was created by your clan long ago to help people who had strength to spare. Practice it carefully, and keep it just for your own training for now." Naruko nodded, understanding the responsibility. She thanked him and promised to practice thoughtfully. That night, tucked safely into bed, Naruko opened the Uzumaki clan codex. The first pages told of the clan's beginnings. Long ago, 3 siblings had trained together under a wise teacher known for sharing knowledge of the world. When their training ended, the teacher brought them to a quiet shrine and offered them a choice. Each sibling was asked what they valued most: strength, honor, or knowledge. The youngest chose strength and went on to help others by being brave and determined. The middle sibling chose honor and became known for fairness and leadership. The eldest, Naruko's ancestor, chose knowledge, believing that understanding the world was the best way to protect it. Though the siblings later followed different paths, they stayed connected through letters filled with respect and care. The eldest sibling traveled to the land of whirlpools, where she lived peacefully and studied the world around her. Over time, she developed the first Ransigen, an eye that helped its bearer observe, reflect, and plan wisely. She later met a kind-hearted local and started a small family rooted in warmth and learning. Their child, Jimmu Uzumaki, grew up cheerful and helpful, known for supporting neighbors and keeping peace. From Jimmu came the Uzumaki name, passed down through generations, eventually to Naruko. The codex explained that the Ransigen helped sharpen awareness and understanding. One ability allowed its user to carefully observe distant places, as though gently borrowing another point of view. Another ability offered brief glimpses of possible futures, not to change them recklessly, but to prepare thoughtfully. The book emphasized balance. Using these abilities required patience, kindness, and self-control. Helpful exercises were included to train the mind, encouraging calm focus and clarity. Naruko read every word carefully. She felt proud, but also thoughtful. She realized that her heritage was not about being special because of a name or an ability. It was about choosing how to grow. She decided then that she would not talk about the Ransigen lightly. She would use what she learned to improve herself, help others, and become someone worthy of her own dreams. Yawning softly, Naruko closed the codex and placed it safely in her nightstand drawer. She turned off the light and rested her head on the pillow, smiling as she thought about the future. Graduation was only 2 months away, and she was ready to work hard, not to be known for where she came from, but for who she chose to be. Iruka and Naruko sat together at the small wooden table in Iruka's cozy kitchen, each holding a warm cup of tea. Steam drifted gently upward, filling the room with a calm, comforting scent. Earlier that morning, when Naruko arrived at class, she had been unusually quiet. She normally bubbled with energy, but today she seemed thoughtful and reserved. Because Iruka cared deeply for her, he had noticed right away. He knew the change came from what she had learned about the Uzumaki clan the day before. Setting his cup down carefully, he spoke in a gentle, steady voice. "Naruko, how are you feeling after what you discovered yesterday?" Naruko took a slow breath, then smiled softly. "I'm doing all right, Iruka. The Uzumaki clan codex is filled with so much history. I didn't expect it to be so detailed, especially about my clan and the Ransigen." Iruka raised an interested eyebrow, and Naruko continued, her confidence growing as she spoke. "Did you know that the Uzumaki, the Uchiha, and the Hyuga all come from 3 brothers who once trained under the Six Realms sage? I thought that was amazing. And the oldest brother's path eventually became my clan's story, while the youngest brother's journey led to the Uchiha." Her smile widened just a little as she noticed Iruka's surprised expression. Iruka leaned back in his chair, truly amazed. The beginnings of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans had always been a mystery, even to scholars who loved history as much as he did. Those families valued privacy and tradition, and their pasts were rarely discussed. Many people had guessed at possible connections, but nothing had ever been certain. To hear Naruko speak with such clarity and pride warmed his heart. He admired how she was turning new knowledge into understanding rather than worry. Seeing her grow more confident in who she was made him quietly happy. Iruka smiled kindly at her. That's incredible, Naruko. You're learning not just where you come from, but how it all fits together. Naruko nodded, her eyes bright. Yeah. It makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger, and that I can choose how my story keeps going. The kitchen felt especially peaceful then, filled with warmth, curiosity, and hope. Although Iruka felt relieved that a long-standing mystery had finally been clarified, his thoughts quickly turned toward concern for Naruko. The truth behind the origins of the Ranseigan, Sharingan, and Byakugan carried enormous importance for the village. If such knowledge were ever shared widely, it could reshape how people understood their history and responsibilities. Some villagers might react emotionally, but that was not what troubled Iruka most. According to the laws of the Land of Fire, clans could only separate under very specific and carefully recorded circumstances. Unless the ancient Uzumaki clan codex clearly documented such an event, then the Hyuga and Uchiha families were, by strict legal definition, branches of the Uzumaki lineage. That meant Naruko herself stood at the center of that legacy. From a purely lawful point of view, Naruko would hold the highest position within that extended family, carrying authority earned through heritage rather than force. If she ever chose to acknowledge this publicly, she would be recognized as a leader with the combined influence of those families. The idea was overwhelming, especially for someone still learning who she wanted to become. Iruka glanced across the room and saw that Naruko understood this just as clearly as he did. A year earlier, she might have reacted loudly or impulsively. Now, she sat quietly, listening and thinking. Her growth was unmistakable. Through patience, study, and guidance, she had learned how to weigh her words and consider the effects her choices might have on others. Naruko did not seek recognition or authority. She cared far more about fairness, friendship, and finding her own path. While Iruka suspected she would prefer to keep such truths private, he admired her restraint. It showed wisdom beyond her years. Still, Iruka could not help but smile at the thought of how surprised some very serious elders might be if they ever learned the full story. Not out of pride or mischief, but as a reminder that true leadership comes from kindness, understanding, and the courage to grow. Iruka gently shook his head, clearing away a passing silly thought, and looked at Naruko with calm curiosity. So, Naruko, he said kindly, can you tell me what the Ranseigan does? The Byakugan and the Sharingan are known for their amazing talents, so I imagine yours is just as special. If there's any way I can help you practice your family's ability, I'd be happy to. Naruko paused for a moment, then smiled. She trusted Iruka, and aside from Grandpa Sarutobi, he was one of the few adults she felt comfortable sharing this with. Taking a steady breath, she began to explain. At first, it lets me see from far away, she said. It's a little like when someone throws their voice across a room, except instead of sound, I'm sending my sight. Iruka blinked in surprise, clearly picturing it. He nodded slowly as she continued, realizing how useful careful observation could be when used responsibly and thoughtfully. But Naruko wasn't finished. There's more, she added, her voice quieter but confident. The Ranseigan can also glimpse the future. Iruka froze for a heartbeat, unsure if she was joking. Seeing his expression, Naruko quickly shook her head. It doesn't show just one future, she explained. It shows many possible paths at once. Since every choice changes what happens next, the eye can only look ahead for a short time, about 1 minute. Any more than that would be too much for the mind to handle. She went on to describe what she had learned from her clan's old writings. According to them, her family's senses had slowly adapted over generations, helping their minds sort through possibilities and focus on the most likely outcome. As things changed, the vision changed too, guiding her toward better decisions. Iruka listened closely, impressed not just by the ability, but by Naruko's thoughtful approach to understanding it. That sounds like a gift meant for wisdom, he said warmly. Naruko smiled again, feeling encouraged and supported. Once the explanations were finished, the two almost siblings sat together quietly, warming their hands around their cups of tea. The pause was peaceful rather than awkward, filled with the gentle sounds of the village beyond the window. Naruko finally looked up, her blue eyes thoughtful but calm. Iruka, she said softly, if I ever can't protect my special ability anymore, I want you to make sure it's never misused. Iruka blinked in surprise. Naruko. What do you mean? She smiled, reassuring and steady. It's something unique to my family. It only works properly when it's guided by kindness and responsibility. If someone tried to use it without understanding that, it wouldn't help anyone. I just want to make sure it's treated with care, no matter what. Iruka listened closely. He knew Naruko well enough to understand that this wasn't fear talking. It was compassion. She didn't want anyone struggling because of something that once belonged to her. Iruka rested a hand over hers. "You have a good heart," he said. "And I promise you this, your gift will always be protected, and your wishes will be respected." Naruko's face lit up with relief, as though a heavy thought had finally been set down. The room felt brighter instantly. "Well then," Iruka added with a grin, clearly eager to change the mood, "how about we go outside and practice? Learning how to use your abilities wisely is the best way to honor them." Naruko jumped to her feet. "Yes. Let's go." Later that morning, Tenten was enjoying a quiet walk along the wooded edge of the village. Her team had recently returned from a simple mission, and for once, everyone had been encouraged to rest. With her usual training partners busy, Tenten decided to enjoy the calm and listen to the forest. As she walked, she noticed the sound of movement ahead, light footsteps, laughter, and the rhythmic thud of practice tools hitting soft earth. Curious, Tenten followed the sounds to a small meadow. There, she saw Iruka and a blonde girl about her age practicing together. They weren't fighting. It was clearly a friendly training session, filled with careful movements, encouragement, and lots of learning. The girl, Naruko, moved with enthusiasm, sometimes stumbling, but always getting back up with a determined smile. Tenten paused at the edge of the field, impressed. She remembered her sensei once explaining that Iruka was known for being well-rounded. He wasn't focused on just one skill, instead, he believed in balance, movement, focus, teamwork, and creativity. Watching him now, calmly guiding Naruko through exercises, Tenten finally understood what that meant. Iruka demonstrated techniques patiently, using simple tools and beginner-friendly techniques. Naruko followed along, asking questions and laughing when she made mistakes. It was clear they trusted each other deeply. Tenten smiled to herself. This wasn't just training. It was teaching, learning, and growing together. She turned back toward the path, feeling inspired to train again later, maybe with a new idea or two of her own. Tenten had first assumed that Iruka was holding back. After all, she believed his training partner could not be more than a genin. Yet as she quietly watched from the edge of the meadow, that assumption quickly melted away. Iruka's opponent was skilled, very skilled. The blonde girl moved with remarkable confidence, as though she could sense what was coming before it happened. Each time Iruka shifted his stance or adjusted his footing, the girl responded smoothly, already prepared. Tenten found herself leaning forward, fascinated. The style Naruko used was unlike anything Tenten had seen before. It blended steady strength with flowing motion, combining firm strikes and gentle redirection. It was disciplined, thoughtful, and surprisingly elegant. Neither fighter relied on flashy techniques. Instead, they used simple moves and clever combinations, turning basic skills into something impressive. Tenten smiled to herself. She appreciated the kind of training. As a weapons specialist, she believed true growth came from understanding fundamentals, not just chasing dramatic tricks. Then Iruka's voice carried clearly across the meadow. "All right, Naruko. You've handled 10 seconds well. Let's try 12. Focus, and give it your best." Tenten blinked. 10 seconds? 12 seconds of what? The moment Iruka finished speaking, Naruko's movements changed. She was still skilled, still calm, but her timing seemed slightly off, as though she were adjusting to something unseen. It wasn't a mistake, more like a recalibration. Now completely puzzled, Tenten quietly stepped away. She needed answers, and if anyone might understand unusual training methods, it was Guy. She hoped, very sincerely, that his explanation would be calm and not overly dramatic. Nearly 40 minutes later, the meadow was peaceful again. Iruka and Naruko sat side by side on a fallen log, sharing water and enjoying the breeze. Neither of them knew they had been observed. For the past month, Iruka had brought Naruko to this hidden clearing to help her practice a rare ability connected to her unique eye technique, which they privately called seer sight. The location was carefully chosen, quiet, safe, and far from busy paths. It allowed Naruko to focus without distractions. On her own, Naruko could practice seeing moments ahead in calm settings. From her apartment window, she could sometimes glimpse nearly a full minute into what was coming next. But training with another person was different. In active practice, especially when many things were happening at once, the future became harder to read. During a friendly exercise with other students the week before, Naruko had only managed to sense a few seconds ahead. That was why Iruka guided her gently, helping her learn patience, focus, and balance. He reminded her that growth wasn't about seeing far, it was about understanding clearly. Naruko nodded, thoughtful but smiling. She knew this path would take time, and she was ready to walk it, one careful step at a time. Iruka listened carefully as Naruko explained her unusual ability. At first, he had been puzzled by her description of how the amount of time she could glimpse ahead seemed to shrink and stretch. He understood that her Ranseigan asked her to notice many details at once, and that more details meant more effort. What truly caught his attention was the clear limit: no matter where she was, the vision never went past 60 seconds. To Iruka, that seemed odd in a gentle, thoughtful way. 60 seconds during a busy training exercise felt full of possibilities, while 60 seconds at home felt calm and simple. Why, then, could the vision not reach farther during peaceful moments? When he asked, Naruko had laughed softly and told him that her clan's scholars had wondered the same thing for generations. In the end, they decided to accept it as part of life. Some mysteries, she believed, were meant to inspire curiosity rather than answers. After finishing her water, Naruko turned toward Iruka with bright eyes and a confident smile. "So, Iruka," she asked, "how did I do? What do you think of my new take on the Uzu Senken, the Thousand Fists of the Whirlpool style?" Iruka glanced at the old scrolls she had been studying. Long ago, the Uzumaki clan had sealed away a small library meant only for their descendants. Naruko had carefully opened those seals and found guides that taught balance, focus, and kindness alongside movement. Step by step, they helped a learner grow, not just in skill, but in patience and understanding. Iruka smiled back at her, proud of the dedication she showed. Naruko's journey was not about winning or hurting others. It was about learning who she was, respecting her heritage, and becoming the best version of herself. Iruka turned to look down at his younger sister and gave Naruko a warm, encouraging smile before beginning his careful explanation. "Overall, Naruko," he said kindly, "you're doing very well with the Uzu Senken. Your movement, balance, and focus have improved a lot. Right now, your hand-to-hand skills are solid for a Jinan and steadily growing stronger. As for your use of the Ranseigan, I'm truly impressed by how calmly and responsibly you handle it. Just remember to keep your focus short for now. 10 seconds is a good limit until you're more experienced. With how consistent you've been in class and during our practice sessions, I'm confident you'll pass the Jinan test without any trouble." Naruko beamed, standing a little taller at his praise. Might Guy, the self-proclaimed vibrant green guardian of Konoha, walked through the halls of the Hokage Tower with an unusually serious expression. Even so, there was no sense of fear in the air, only a quiet awareness that Guy was deep in thought. Other ninja politely stepped aside, sensing that now was not the time to interrupt him. Ignoring the secretary's gentle protests, Guy entered the Hokage's office and placed his hands firmly on the desk. The third Hokage looked up calmly from his paperwork. "Yes, Guy," Sarutobi said in his steady, dignified voice. "How may I help you?" Guy met his gaze, his tone respectful but firm. "There is something you must explain, Lord Hokage." Sarutobi raised an eyebrow slightly. "I spoke with my student Tenten today," Guy continued. "She mentioned seeing Iruka practicing with a young shinobi named Naruko. From what she described, Naruko's skills and heritage are remarkable. Why was I not told that Lady Kushina's child had survived?" Sarutobi closed his eyes for a brief moment and took a slow breath. He had known this conversation would come one day. After the difficult events surrounding the Nine Tails, Sarutobi said gently, "Many of the people Kushina and Minato trusted were no longer able to care for a child. You and Kakashi were both far too young at the time to raise someone safely. Keeping Naruko's identity private allowed her to grow up peacefully, without being placed under unnecessary pressure or attention." Guy listened carefully, then nodded. "Does Naruko know the responsibility she carries?" "Not yet," Sarutobi replied softly. "She will, when the time is right." Before leaving, Guy smiled faintly. "I've been keeping Lady Kushina's twin Kadachi safe. I'll make sure they are returned to Naruko by sundown." Naruko approached the Hokage Tower later that day, her heart fluttering with curiosity. Iruka had quietly told her that Grandpa Sarutobi wished to see her after class. She wore her black pants, her jacket with orange accents, and her forehead protector proudly displayed. At her sides were two short practice blades, her mother's Kadachi, which had mysteriously appeared at her apartment weeks earlier with a note saying they had been lovingly protected and were finally home. The Hokage's secretary smiled kindly and gestured for Naruko to enter. Sarutobi looked up as she stepped inside, his expression softening immediately. Seeing Naruko wearing her forehead protector filled him with quiet pride. For a moment, memories of her parents surfaced, but he gently set them aside. "Please, sit," he said, motioning to the chair. Once Naruko was settled, Sarutobi spoke warmly. "I wish your parents could see you now. They would be incredibly proud. Your growth this past year has been extraordinary, especially once you learned how to focus your energy and believe in yourself. Several instructors have told me how much you've surprised them with your determination and kindness." He smiled. Earning respect through effort and heart is far more meaningful than any flashy title. Never forget that. Naruko nodded, feeling both humbled and inspired as she listened. And in that quiet office, she took another small step toward the bright future waiting for her. Seeing the sparkle in Naruko's eyes as she listened brought a gentle smile to the third Hokage's face. In his later years, Sarutobi had come to treasure moments like this, quiet conversations, shared trust, and the chance to guide a young heart. Still, his chest felt heavy. What he needed to say was important, even if it was not easy. He took a slow breath and met Naruko's gaze with kindness. "Naruko, there is something I need to tell you," he said softly. "It isn't a cheerful story, but it is an honest one, and you deserve the truth." Naruko sat up straight, listening carefully. "Long ago," Sarutobi continued, "the village was protected from a powerful fox spirit by the fourth Hokage. Instead of destroying the spirit, he chose a path that would keep everyone safe forever. He sealed the fox spirit away, giving up his own strength in the process. To ensure the seal would hold, the spirit was placed within you shortly after you were born." Sarutobi leaned forward, his voice warm and steady. "Never believe that this spirit defines who you are. You are not the fox spirit. You are Naruko, kind, determined, and deeply valued. Some people struggle to understand this, and for that, I am truly sorry. The fourth Hokage wished for you to be honored as a protector, but I wanted you to grow up with as normal and happy a childhood as possible." Naruko was quiet for a moment. Her thoughts moved quickly, but her expression remained calm. At last, she nodded. "Thank you for telling me, Grandpa Sarutobi," she said. "I think I understand. It also explains something else I've noticed about myself." Sarutobi blinked in surprise. "Oh? And what is that?" "I believe I have developed a second bloodline ability," Naruko replied gently. The Hokage's eyes widened. "That should not be possible," he said. "Every record we have suggests." "I know," Naruko said, smiling. "But the Uzumaki family kept very careful notes. They learned that bloodline abilities come in different types, and as long as they don't overlap, they can exist together safely." She explained it simply, like sharing a favorite lesson. Some bloodlines affect the senses, others guide chakra, and some strengthen the body itself. Her own ability, she said, helped her body heal quickly when she focused her chakra, keeping her healthy and strong. It wasn't magic, and it didn't make her unstoppable, it just helped her take good care of herself. Sarutobi listened in amazed silence. What she described was thoughtful, logical, and filled with compassion rather than ambition. Naruko stood and walked toward the door, then paused and turned back with a bright grin. "I'll keep learning and growing," she said. "That's the best way I can honor everyone who believed in me." As she left, Sarutobi smiled to himself. The future of the village felt a little brighter. Dear YouTube family, that concludes this fanfic video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for what's next. Sincerely, 6 Path Weeb.